Spirituality that is expressed is not spirituality. Welcome to part 16 of this RFEFP series. I'm Nibi, hoping you're keeping very well on the plain earth over the last few weeks since my last upload. Always hoping that you find the strength and that one real positive influence that helps get you through your working day. Now, is sky really the limit? The Karman line, can we put it to the test? Well, let's find out. Now, the Karman line, named after Theodor von Karman, was the first to apparently calculate at which altitude the atmosphere became too thin to support aeronautical flight, and thus he arrived at 51.9 miles. And this was later changed, and seems to change quite a lot, really. So the question remains, where is space exactly? Now, this may seem like a simple question, and any answer beyond straight up may be a little bit more complicated than you might think. Although most people are generally in agreement that space, or at least LEO, low Earth orbit, begins when Earth's atmosphere ends. So it sounds simple enough, and don't we deserve to know where exactly the edge of space is? Well, the question depends on who you ask and what country you're actually in asking it. Space may be the final frontier, but it's always been made in a Hollywood basement. I'm sure you've heard that before. We are told by NASA that space is a virtual vacuum, and their approximation as to where this vacuum starts and the atmosphere stops is called the Karman line, which they have estimated at 62 miles, where aeronautics end and astronautics take over. And international law actually states that outer space shall be free for all exploration and free to use by all. But there is no definitive law stating where national airspace actually ends and outer space really begins. Now, in the helio theory, once this so-called 100-kilometer line is crossed, the atmosphere becomes too thin to provide enough lift for conventional aircraft to maintain flight. And thus at this altitude, a conventional plane would need to reach orbital velocity or risk falling back to Earth. And the French Fédération Aéronautique Internationale and many other organisations use this Karman line as a way of determining when spaceflight has been achieved. And remember this point, because in recent times, they think now that the atmosphere is something like over 250,000 miles away or more. Now, the only proof of the vacuum of space, my friends, is this illusion of weightlessness. And so without the illusion of weightlessness in space, this reveals the farce, the fallacious, the stage show that NASA calls the vacuum of space, the VOS. One cannot have a vacuum next to a non-vacuum and have interplay between the two. This is simply impossible and paradoxical. A vacuum in the lab is created by sucking out the gases, the matter. But in space, the same vacuum is supposedly created and maintained by the paradoxical expansion of the universe. How can this be? Imagine exhaling into a balloon and then inhaling the air back out. Expansion, vacuum. They are two completely different processes. But yet NASA says it yields the same result. And many people who try to explain gravity, this does not happen, friends. As the saying trying to pass the so-called Karman line, then you enter the partial vacuum of space and then bam, you've suddenly become weightless. This does not happen. The theory is not practical. There is no Karman line to pass. This is needed to try and prove, very simply, that there is an outer space and not just an inner one. Now, in recent times, the debate about where this Karman line sits above the Earth is still going on. And now it's grown even bigger because a team of astronomers have discovered that it's bigger than they even thought, extending all the way out to the moon and far again. The region called the geocorona, part of an atmospheric layer called the exosphere, and its tenacious cloud of neutral hydrogen that glows in far ultraviolet light. Let me get my bed covers. Because it's so thin, it's been so hard to measure previously. How many times do you think that we're going to hear this? They believe that its upper limit was thought to be around 200,000 kilometers, 124,000 miles from Earth, because this is the point where the solar radiation pressure would override Earth's gravity, the boundary between Earth's atmosphere and space. Well, according to data from the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory, SOHO, co-owned by ESA, the European Space Agency, and NASA, funny enough, that limit doesn't even come close. The geocorona scientists have found, apparently, it extends out as far as 630,000 kilometers, 391,000 miles. So from 52 to 62 to 391,000 miles. Now this is a very, very big jump. But what makes it even more typical of the helioscience here is that SOHO apparently made these observations over 2 decades ago, between 1996 and 1998. So this data has just been sitting in an archive somewhere at HQ, waiting for someone to just get around to analysing it when they feel like it. Like it's not such a big deal, where the edge of Earth's atmosphere ends and this vacuum of space really starts, especially if we intend to go to the moon and back numerous times and send numerous probes to distant planets and so-called orbiting satellites, and maybe just one day achieve the normal everyday person like you or I in outer space. This will never happen. Only inner space. And I'm sure you can come to your own conclusions, my friends. How many books would need to be rewritten over and over and over and over again? It's the same old theory science that's always needed to sell the science fiction story. Now, only 24 people on our plain Earth have ever apparently left low Earth orbit, and the last people were Gene Cernan and Harrison Schmitt on December the 14th, 1972. And since then, no one has been anywhere closer to the moon than low Earth orbit. Now, NASA do say that they used to have the right technology to get to outer space back in the 60s and the 70s, but unfortunately, they've destroyed it, and it's a painful process to build it back up again. So we'll just stay in low Earth orbit for now. But in recent times, they do want to send the first female to the moon, which is going to cost in the region of 20 billion. Now, why can't people just believe in what we see every day? The problems that we have here on plain Earth. The motionless plain Earth, where the sun circles above during the day and the moon circles during the night, with the wandering stars and the luminaries to look at. What we could all achieve, from the wonders of plant power to solar power and wind power, to electromagnetism that is found everywhere, hydro fuel cells, water power, and air power. Some of us already know airplanes really fly with compressed air vortex technology, thanks to Victor Strauberger, from an airport over our plain Earth. So simple, yet just so fascinating. The Earth has got so much to give, so much that we do not know about, but yet we ponder over the physically impossibility of make-believe Star Wars fiction. My point being, if one was to think of trying to get into space as a space tourist or a low Earth orbit tourist, well, maybe not try phoning Virgin Galactic, as they always seem to be engaged at the moment, and there are only a few other companies that seem to be able to offer this fantastic opportunity of a lifetime, taking a more leisurely approach to exploring the high altitudes above Earth, not just Virgin. There are SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Oxum Space, which is the space hotel. And this, when up and running, the so-called ticket prices for an 8-day stay on the space hotel station will just be a mere $55 million, with a package also including a 15-week training course here on plain Earth. Well, that's nice. Hope you get a keyring. Also, Boeing and Worldview Enterprises, based in Arizona, USA, claims to be the first building designedly solely for developing stratospheric flight. So their theory-based vehicle, Voyager, envisage a flight that will last around 5 to 6 hours, made up to travel about 100,000 feet, or nearly 20 miles above the Earth's surface, where their official statement is, from up here, you'll apparently be able to see the curvature of the planet, during which a lovely crew of 8 will comfortably float up to the strat in a capsule, and you'll have all the amenities that you need, like giant windows, a small bar, a bathroom, and of course Wi-Fi, so passengers can post their pictures of the real-time sunrise to social media. I'll remember that next time I lose signal. You won't experience weightlessness, apparently, at this altitude, but you'll be around 3 pounds lighter, and reservations are open already. Although, unfortunately, my friends, no flights have actually been scheduled as of yet, and won't be for a very, very long time. And the cost, if one is asking, is currently set at $75,000 per person. And remember, you will apparently be able to see the curvature of Earth from up here. Yet this is complete nonsense, because to anybody who has actually looked at the Earth with open eyes and does a little due diligence at this altitude, well, you'll be asking, what flucking curve? You can't see one anywhere on plain Earth, because at 20 miles up, we have already got there independently with HABs, the high altitude weather balloons, and also drones. Here, you can see at over 100,000 feet up and more that the Earth is flat, very flat, because the Earth is flat, folks. Simple as that. Yes, the Red Bull Strat Dive has to show a fish-eyed curve and many other fallacious obscurities, because they've got to try and convince you that it's there, when there is no such thing to a curve to Earth or an elevation drop. There is no Karman line. Sky is the limit. Now, back in 1931, when they first got to the stratosphere, for the very first time in human history, through their portholes, the observers saw the Earth for what it really is. And they quote, "It seemed like a flat disk with an upturned edge," contrary to what they thought they would see because they are globe believers. That's the point, friends. It's flat at any altitude level. There is no such point anywhere on this plain Earth where you would suddenly become weightless either. This is yet another fallacious claim. No such experiments can ever be performed or tested to prove this theoretical helioscience of sudden weightlessness. So it can, will, and always be theoretical. Plain Earth has no outer curve, no elevation drop at all, anywhere, at any point on it, no matter how high you get to, and we have been to already. So by definition, it is certainly not a globe. It is not a ball. It is not an oblated spheroid of some kind, or even a pear or any other fruit, shooting and wobbling through space with liquid sticking to it from the outside of it. These are all impossibilities. It's a flat circular Earth that we live on, with powers that we have no idea are available to ourselves. Now, I have to mention, there is a point where sky is the limit, and this is called the firmament. This line has been tested and is not the elusive, fictitious, so-called Karman line. It's there, it's real. However, the information is classified to the public and is not for the public eyes, unfortunately, as one can handle the truth. A group of people panic and frustrate each other, causing confusion and total disarray. It's easier to fool you with outer space. So this knowledge must stay with your humble narrator for now. Yet one who asks the right questions will always be given the right answers. Hence why I try to make this no-funding RFEFP series. This is why sky really is the limit. And it's the firmament line that is a real flat Earth fact on the plane and not the Karman line. And this is why the sky is really blue during the day. As above, it's what's below. Thank you for your time here today. Please come back. Maybe hit the subscribe if you are new to the channel to get part 17. We are all one big family here on plain Earth, all brothers and sisters. Big thanks for your attention. Good luck to you, and as always, keep safe here on plain Earth. I will see you next time, and hopefully not as long. You take care. And always remember, friends, spirituality that is expressed is not spirituality.